The Army Painter Warpaint's Fanatic Most Wanted paint set includes a comprehensive collection of 22 paints, including 14 acrylic colors, 2 skin tones, 2 effects, 2 metallics, a wash, and a brush-on primer. The set was designed with limited carryover colors, meaning this is a seamless add-on set to grow your collection if you already have the starter or mega set. This set also comes with a free miniature, the Goblin Warchief from Eldfall Chronicles. Thomas did a fantastic job painting this miniature for the box art, but we have Steffen here in studio to show you how to replicate Thomas's work with the paints found inside the set. We started by priming the model with color primer matte black and then added a zenithal highlight of matte white air primer. This method helps to preview the highlights and shadows on the miniature. We'll begin with a base coat of Warpaint's Fanatic Olive Drab on all of the Goblin Warchief's skin. The Fanatic paints apply super smooth right out of the bottle and still offer insane coverage when thinned with clean water, as you can see Steffen achieving one simple coat with this color here. Next, mix in a bit of warped yellow to the olive drab for your first layered highlight and apply this on top of the muscles and other raised areas, leaving the base tone in the recesses. Then with skeleton bone, go ahead and pick out the details on the skin like veins or scars as you see Steffen doing here. You can also apply this as a heavy glaze highlight to the most raised areas on the skin, like so. This next step isn't necessary for beginners at home, but for anyone looking to enhance their technique, use some of the Warpaint Stabilizer, which you can find from the Fanatic rack at your friendly local game store, and use this to thin some burning ore to create a glaze-like consistency. If this is your first time mixing a glaze at home and you're wondering how thin you want the paint to be, just keep in mind that you're using a glaze to tint the surface underneath. So you'll just thin it enough to shift the color of the miniature. Steffen's going to apply this to the skin to add a bit of warmth and liveliness to it. Once it's dry, go back to your skeleton bone that you have on your palette and use this to reestablish some of the details on the skin. We're using a Wargamer Regiment brush here, and if you needed one brush to base coat and apply details, this is the brush for you. It's one of the most versatile brushes in our lineup. With the skin done, we'll apply a base coat to the loincloth with matte black. We're using that same regiment brush here. Then we'll apply our first layered highlight with Night Sky. This is a nice black bluish gray. As you apply this highlight, be careful to leave some of the black in the recesses. Next, we'll mix in a bit of the Barren Blue from the set to that Night Sky, and we'll refine our highlights for the black a bit further. Take your time here and be as neat as you can as you layer and edge highlight these areas on the miniature. Moving to a detail brush for these stages will allow even more precision control when applying these detailed steps. Finally, we will apply pure Barren Blue to the final edge and spectral highlights. Be sparing with this highlight. The straps around the chieftain's boots here is a great example, focusing this only on the most visible outer details. We'll move on to painting in the metals on the miniature with a base coat of the improved Warpaint's metallics, this time using gunmetal. The new metallics are a hybrid formulation utilizing a blend of aluminum flake for coverage and mica for sheen and reflectiveness. Once that's dry, apply dark skin shade from the Fanatic wash range all over the metal areas. As you apply it, watch as the deeper pigments work their way into the recesses and details, helping to build contrast on the miniature. Once your wash is dry, go back to your gunmetal and re-establish the base coat, leaving the washed pigments in the shaded areas and recesses. For a more worn metal appearance, you can be a bit rough and sketchy with this step. We'll grab some more of that burning ore glaze mixture and apply this to some focal points on the metallics to be building up some weathering. Here's a pro tip. To take this rust effect even further, use the techniques that you're seeing here with dark and fresh rust from the Fanatic's effects range to take your rust to a whole nother level. That's because those effects paints feature subtle textured bits inside that really help to pull off that rust effect. Moving on, we'll use True Copper to base coat some of the other metal details on the Mini. We will once again apply a shade of dark skin shade. This wash tone is so versatile. Use it for cold colors, warm colors, skin tones, metallics. The inherent purple and brown pigments make a really great shade for a variety of base colors. To highlight those copper tones, mix in a bit of that gunmetal that you have on your palette and apply your first layered highlights. A final edge highlight of pure gunmetal will do the trick next. To finish off, we'll glaze Talisman Teal thinned with Warpaint Stabilizer and add a bit of verdigris to the copper. If you love this effect, then check out the verdigris effects paint from the broader Fanatic range. Just apply this mixture to the recesses on the copper, and as it dries into those recesses, you'll end up with a simple weathering effect. With the copper done, we'll base coat our red details with Basilisk Red. And you gotta pinch me, because every time I see the Fanatic Reds cover in one coat, I think I'm dreaming, but I'm not dreaming. Smooth reds in just one coat. We'll shade this once more with, you guessed it, dark skin shade from the Most Wanted set. Careful here that it doesn't pool over any of the details that you've previously painted. The longer drying time of our wash formulation allows you plenty of working time to move this paint around and prevent it from pooling where you don't want it to. Once that's dried, mix some skeleton bone with your Basilisk Red and begin highlighting all of the red leather details on the miniature. Then finish it off with a refined highlight of pure skeleton bone. Now that those leather details are finished, we'll add a more saturated red element with dragon red over the robes. We'll mix in a bit of the warped yellow for the first vibrant red highlight and focus this on the raised edges on the robes and cloth on the miniature. Next, we're going to use pure burning ore to finish off the warmer red details with a simple edge highlight. Thin down a bit of onyx skin and apply this as a glaze to the skulls and the horn. Once that's dry, we'll wash these elements with dark skin shade, the workhorse wash of this tutorial. Then with a mix of onyx skin and skeleton bone, we'll apply our first highlights, focusing this on the top of the skulls and the more rigid details on the horn before applying a refined highlight of pure skeleton bone. We'll finish off the skulls and horn with a final highlight of brain matter beige. Next up, we're going to base coat the fur cape. Mix matte black with some onyx skin for a simple deep brown base tone. Then apply a textured highlight of pure onyx skin to the raised edges on the fur. You can add a bit of warmth to the fur by mixing in a bit of burning ore and apply this as a sketchy glaze highlight over the top edges. We'll render this a bit further with an application of skeleton bone to the fine details on the fur. Moving on to the base, we'll apply a solid coat of onyx skin. Then we'll shade that with our dark skin shade. And once the wash has had time to dry, we will apply a dry brush of skeleton bone to pick out the details on the base. Once you're done with that, finish off the base with a clean coat of matte black around the rim. This Most Wanted set comes with the Warpaint's Fanatic Dry Blood Effect paint. Using a sponge, lightly stipple this onto the areas of the miniature where you want a splattered blood effect. This paint is a deep, deep red with a bit of fine texture that dries to a very, very gloss finish for a realistic gore effect. Here's a pro tip. Always apply blood and chipping effects lighter at first, because you can add more later. You can always apply more to the effect, but it's very difficult if you overdo it early on. In areas that you really want to enhance the gore, apply dry blood with a brush to reinforce the effect. Then with some Battlefield's Basing Glue and your preferred Battlefield's Tufts, we're using Wasteland Tufts here, add them to the base and your miniature is complete. To learn more about the Warpaint's Fanatic Most Wanted paint set and our full range of high-quality paints and accessories designed to make miniature painting simple, fast, and fun, learn more at your friendly local game store, preferred online retailer, or at www.thearmypainter.com.